I enjoy my sailors. My sailors make it all worth it. To be able to watch them from, young petty officers to now chiefs, senior chiefs, and master chiefs is phenomenal.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tinker Talks. This is your audio format podcast that talks about all things behind the fence line of Tinker Air Force Base. I'm your host, Mark Hybers, joined alongside with April McDonald. April, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And it could be morning. You don't know.
We don't.
But I promise you, you're not seeing this live or hearing it live, but it is the afternoon. So, April, I'm kind of excited for today's podcast.
I am too. Very excited.
Something we've been meaning to do for a long time and have not been able to coordinate schedules and actually tried to figure out how to talk about it without breaking any rules of OPSEC violation security. But with that said, we are going to talk about a very, very big, important mission partner here at Tinker Air Force Base, and that's our Navy folks that are here on board. So with that, we are going to talk to the Strategic Communications Wing 1 commander. That's Commodore?
That is, yeah.
Captain Cedrick Jessup. And morning, sir. First, just to jump right out, I had served in the Navy a couple thousand years ago. We were floating wooden ships, but I don't recall having used the term Commodore back in those days. Is that more recent?
Actually, no. Actually, Commodore goes back. It's pretty historic, to be honest with you. So Commodore used to be an admiral, like your first one-star admiral, and we actually changed it over in the mid '80s. Is when we actually changed it to where now it's a senior captain, 06 type, and not an admiral. But the Commodore still is a designation. It's more so a title than a rank, right. Today that basically delineates that you are over pretty much a wing for an aviation side or even a group, a ship, battle group for that matter. We call them a Desron is the Commodore there on the ship side. So. Right. But it's actually a title now, so basically delineating what you're over instead of actually a rank. But it used to be actually a rank, so it's actually pretty historic. It went many years.
Yeah, I thought it went way back to the early
it
days.
Did.
But I remember we always called our captain skipper.
Yeah,
or they could have been a commander at that time, depending on the size of the ship or the command. But anyway, with that, sir, welcome to the podcast.
No, thank you. Thanks
so
for having
much
me.
for taking time out of your day. I know you're very busy. But first off, before we get into the topic, can you just give us a little bit of background about who you are, kind of how you got to this point in your career?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'll be the first one to tell you that I would not have ever imagined my life, let's put it that way, or even my career for that matter, has gotten to this point. I grew up in a very small town in Mount Airy, North Carolina. If you ever watched the Andy Griffith Show, they based the show off of my hometown, actually. Wow. Andy Griffith actually graduated from my high school. So a really small town. It's like pretty much everybody knew each other, in the hometown. I would ride my bike down the street and just waving at everybody sitting on the porch, just rocking and rocking chairs, But we actually had the Floyd's Barbershop, Aunt Bee's Diner, and all that good jazz. So it was pretty neat, yeah. And there's actually words to the whistling song. So I actually had to learn those when I was in high school. So lo and behold, coming out of a small town like that, I would have never imagined, becoming the Commodore of an entire wing here in Oklahoma City, especially in Oklahoma. I'm United States Navy, United Air Force. And so, but again, went to college and actually I joined the Air Force, ROTC, because I wanted to fly, so I actually been wanting to fly since I was 11 years old, and my father had taken me to an air show at a young age, and I fell in love with all the aerobatics that the aircraft were doing, in the air, and then, and I told my mom one day, I was like, I want to be a pilot, Mom. Of course, my mom says, baby, you can do whatever you want to do, baby, and I was like, okay, so I actually wrote it down. So I wrote it down and actually created some steps on how I was going to get there.
Wow.
And this was when I was 11. And I seriously, and I actually put it up in the bathroom on the mirror. And so the steps have morphed since then. It was pretty basic back then, and so they've kind of morphed, since then. But when I got to college and I joined the Air Force RTC, and I'll never forget, great guy. I'm actually still friends with him today. He was the DET RTC instructor there at North Carolina A&T State University, where I graduated from, which is the HBCU. And so they had never given a pilot slot to any of the students coming out of there to the Air Force. And so the Colonel Ronnie E. Murphy, he pulled me in his office one day and said, "Hey, Cedrick, we can put you on scholarship, but you can't be a pilot." It's like, we've never had, them select a pilot out of here, and I looked at him. I was like, "Well, sir, I apologize, but I'm probably wasting your time." I was like, "I don't want to do anything else but fly." And so I actually called up the Navy recruiter in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I said, "Hey, is there an opportunity that I could come fly for the Navy?" And he was like, "Well, come on up. I'm going to have you take the OCS candidate test and see what you qualify for, and we'll go from there." So I qualified for pilot, and because I'd already been flying through CAP, Civil Air Patrol, and then gave me an OCS date, and then I went through flight school, and lo and behold, here I am today. But it's kind of, even an interesting trip there, because I actually started off flying helicopters first, and then I flew helicopters for about 5 years before transitioning over to jets, and then flew 737, 707. So now I'm pretty much on my 8th aircraft right now since I've flown in the Navy, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. So and again, the Commodore for the nuclear deterrence asset for the United States government, which is also pretty cool.
That is.
Pretty cool is a little minor understatement. So, sir, before we carry on, I got to know, did you take the checklist off of the mirror and make it a knee board?
I wish I still had it today, because I really would like to, because I remember kind of vaguely exactly what I put on there. I think I just put college, Air Force, airlines, and that's all that was on there. Of course, that morphed into more steps. There's more steps to get to to the point I am here today. But I wish I had actually did that and kept it and kind of framed it. So.
Well, I think for myself speaking personally, I think I'm glad to see that you got out of the helicopters. I remember being stationed on an aircraft carrier and watching the Sea Kings always disappear over as they're coming into land. They'd disappear for a minute, and you'd see them come back up over the top.
Oh yeah,
and come on deck. So I always felt that those pilots were extraordinarily brave.
Oh
just to lift up off the deck and take a ride.
Oh man, I'm gonna tell you, I had some very nail biting times on the flying the helicopter, especially over in the East Philippine Sea and the East China Sea, when the sea state was just rocking, and trying to get that helicopter back on a small boy, which we call frigates, cruisers, and destroyers, were always a little sketchy. So
that's a lot of moving around. That's
yes,
awesome. So, sir, let me ask you. You started out from a small town. You already talked about some of the barriers that you broke just getting to become a pilot, which you wanted to do. So you're only the second person of color to lead TACAMO.
Affirmative, yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The first being the retired Rear Admiral Dwight Shepard.
Yes.
Can you tell us how that feels to you to come up, breaking barriers like that and following
Well, I'll tell you, retired Admiral Shepard has been one of my mentors for many years, of course, and just his friendship and mentorship is really guided me along this way, and being able to follow definitely in his footsteps on what the barriers that even he broke, to get to this point. I mean, and not to say the least, to even get this far. We're a very small community, so the opportunities are pretty small, in TACAMO, because of what we do in our mission. It's highly scrutinized and highly selective. But I'm definitely humbled and very appreciative of the blessing. I'm going to be honest with you, the blessing that has been bestowed upon to be able to sit in this position today. Following Admiral Shepard, and definitely the milestones that that he broke to get to this point. Currently, right now, even across the United States Navy and aviation world, there's only 2 of us that are actually African American that are holding a commodore position across naval aviation currently, and that's on both the East Coast, West Coast. It's actually myself and Captain Dewan Cheney, who's also a good friend of mine, and we keep in contact. But we're the only 2 currently that are sitting in the seat, and. The Navy has tried for many years to try to increase definitely minority representation across the board. It's a tough bill. I'm going to be honest with you. You got to have incentives. You got to have opportunities, and you really have to have a person that wants to be here and wants to strive to be here. Because I'll be honest with you, I can make double of what I'm doing, for what I'm doing out in the civilian sector. Right. But you got to have that pride for country and for the mission to remain for this many years. I've been doing this for 24 years now, and I enjoy it. I enjoy my job, and I definitely enjoy leading. I enjoy my sailors. My sailors make it all worth it. To be able to watch them from young petty officers to now chiefs, senior chiefs, and master chiefs is phenomenal.
That's awesome. Well, you were pretty lucky you had a mom who was obviously very supportive. She told you early out of the gate that you could do whatever you wanted. So.
And she still does.
That's awesome. You're a lucky man, sir.
Yes, sir.
So how did your time as wing deputy, because you were the deputy before you promoted into this position, how did that help you in your current position?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I know most services don't do this. I like the way the Navy has always done this. We do a fleet up policy, which is great, especially on the aviation side. Ships do it to an extent as well in the Navy, but on the aviation side, we've always done a fleet up. Whether you're going into a squadron CO position, or whether you're going into the deputy commodore position, to where you're able to sit as a deputy watching the now commodore, or if you're sitting as an XO watching the now CO, operate for their tour. Mm-hmm. And so then once it's time for you to take the seat, you basically rotate to the next office. But it's great because you already know everything that's going on. You already know the people. You already know all the other leadership, the meeting schedule, how it is. You already know the issues that you may be having and the things you need to focus on. And so it's a great time. So I sat as deputy in this position for 18 months. So we do 18 months as deputy, 18 months as the Commodore. Mm-hmm. And so being able to sit there for that time and actually watch and learn, get to know the battle rhythm, definitely get to know the people, is actually phenomenal. And that really prepares you to be successful in the position, to where it's a seamless transition once that change of command happens. Nothing falls off the plate, which is great.
Awesome.
That is great.
Yeah.
So when I give tours, people are always surprised to know that there are sailors. So you have 1,400 sailors, and they're in the middle of Oklahoma. Besides being in a landlocked state, what makes your unit unique in the Navy?
So we actually have about 1,700 actually here in Oklahoma City, which is, and we are stationed. This is the headquarters for TACAMO, and we have an East Coast det site. We have also the Central Det site up in Omaha, Nebraska, and then we also have another one in Travis Air Force Base out in California. But the sailors here in Oklahoma, and the reason why we're here in Oklahoma is because of our mission. Our mission is basically we have to cover 3 AORs. So we have the Atlantic, of course, those Central United States, and of course, and the Pacific. So having our command here in the Central United States enables us to basically go east, west, or even up north to execute our mission, from a central location. And this is, Oklahoma City is a great central location. Plus, an added benefit is being here on an Air Force base. So the Air Force base, because of our jet, we're the only jet in the United States Navy that requires security at the level that we required it, which is we're considered PO1 security, and that is a security level that basically operates to where no civilian can walk up to the jet. I can't park it out. Basically what I consider an uncontrolled field and just leave it and walk away and go get a hotel. And I can't do that. This one requires 24-hour security. And so the Air Force has policies and procedures that enable us to do that here at Tinker. The Navy, we actually don't have that, so we actually have to train, and that's another good reason why a lot of the services are going joint, and a lot of the bases are going joint, because we have some shared characteristics that we can actually help each other out with, and the Air Force does a great job with helping us with this mission as well here.
Right. Awesome.
So yeah.
So we've mentioned TACAMO a lot. Can you tell our listeners what that means?
Take charge and move out. All right. So, it's a great history, behind TACAMO and how they actually came to be. So back in the 1960s, during the Cold War era, basically we ran into when, Russia was moving, the submarines and their ships down to to Cuba. We had our submarines and we were having a hard time communicating with them. And so we decided to try some low frequency band band waves to be able to talk to our submarines, and it was having issues with that. And so was like, man, how do we fix this? And so they tried to do it on the ground, and they realized that would be an easy target. So then it was like, we need to make it mobile. So it's like, how about we throw it on an aircraft, right? And we could string this low frequency wire out the back of this aircraft, and then we could talk to our submarines via that way. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, the admiral's like, make it happen, take charge and move out. And TACAMO was born.
Really? That's awesome.
That is awesome.
That's very cool. And it's not a small plane.
It is not.
They're big planes. And so you being a pilot, I wanted to ask you this question. So during the 2017 air show here at Tinker, one of your pilots flew the E6 the entire length of the runway, and it was probably, it couldn't have been more than 20, 30 feet off the ground. I mean, the plane was so close to the ground. It might have been lower than 20 feet. Yeah. How difficult a maneuver is that to fly a plane that far, that close to the ground, and then just took off? He didn't even land. He just left.
Oh, man, I'm going to tell you. The we fly Boeing 707 aircraft. Okay, so this aircraft, at max operating weight, we're at 342,000 pounds, right? I mean, this is a heavy bird, right? But the great thing about, of course, naval aviation is that, I look at it, if you ever read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And so if once you spend numerous hours, I think he references 10,000 hours doing something, you become an expert, right? So we spend countless hours training, practicing in naval aviation. Our flight school is 2 years long. Right, wow. And that's flying various aircraft during that 2-year time frame. So you begin very keen to what we call the seat of the pants feel. When the aircraft, very slightly maybe descending or climbing or turning left or turning right. So, and then the more time you spend in the seat, the more comfortable you get. So I remember one of my first aircrafts was the T-34 Charlie, and I remember I could put that aircraft anywhere I wanted to. It was a fun aircraft. I was like, man, I want to buy one of these when I retire. Right? It's like a toy. It's like So and then so the E6 gets to that point as well. It's like you get to the point that you've flown it so many times. You know exactly what she sounds like. You know exactly when she's angry and not acting right, and when she's going to start turning on you. And so flying an aircraft, so many feet off the deck and just streaming down the entire length of the runway, it becomes like, I got this. I know what the sight picture is. And that's one of the maneuvers. I'm being honest. We actually practice is basically putting the aircraft and basically into a flare profile, and we're literally less than about 10. We're about 10 feet off the deck or less, and just gliding down the runway, maintaining that exact same sight picture. And then once we get to the end of the runway, we'll call for go around thrust winch, and then we'll climb out. And so it's actually a maneuver that we practice quite a bit, for pilots. So yeah.
Well, it was impressive to watch. I remember the crowd was pretty excited, and having been around this as long as I have, and even in the Navy for a period of time, I'd never seen an aircraft that large fly. Yeah. I mean, I'd figure a fighter jet could do it pretty easily. But not one of those big ones. So do E6 also pilot aircrafts that are assigned to aircraft carriers?
So no. So it's kind of different, with E6s, because we can't land on a carrier because we're so big, of course. Mm-hmm. The pilots that initially get assigned to TACAMO, pretty much, they'll stay TACAMO. We have some pilots, they'll transition out and they'll go fly F-18s, which do go to the carrier, this and other. But at that point, they're out of the TACAMO community. At that point. Or they could be like me, where I flew helicopters first, and I'm going to the carrier in the small boys, but then I transition out of the helos, and now I'm flying the E6. So, but most pilots they pretty much start E6 and they stay E6, their entire career. Hopefully moving up the ranks. So
right. Yeah, it's good to fly. Not quite as often.
Yeah.
So the wing here has an alert mission, along with all the flying wings here. Yeah. Is it similar to an alert mission on board an aircraft? Does it work the same way?
Kinda. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's very similar. But I look at it, from the alert. So you're like a Ready 5, all right, on the aircraft carrier. So you may be sitting in a Ready 5 position. Is basically you're sitting in the cockpit and you're waiting for the air boss to say go, right? And you're just waiting. Whereas we are actually on deck, we're on ground, this, that, and other. I mean, our guys could be asleep. I mean, they could be in the racks, knocked out, and then we get what's called a klaxon. All right, it's an alarm that goes off in our alert facility. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows exactly what that means. That means get dressed ASAP, run to the jet, and get her off deck. Hopefully we never, I'm going to be honest with you, so we practice this all the time. Again, just like, anything, we practice this all the time. But hopefully we never have to really do it. And hopefully we never actually get, for real klaxon. I remember one time I was standing alert, and I knew a couple guys that went over to the exchange, but we always got to maintain what we call our minimum alert crew at the alert facility. So we always have a ready crew ready to go at all times. Even if some guys go to the gym to some other, we always have a ready crew ready to go. And so I remember I was sitting there and I was watching TV, and sure enough, the klaxon goes off, and it was unexpected, because we practice, and I know when it's going to happen, but it went off, and I ran out to the jet, got her started. It was about ready to taxi. I'm waiting for, the message to come in to let me know exactly what's going on, and nothing came in. So I'm waiting. Nothing came in. And I was like, okay. So then we end up shutting down. And apparently it was a glitch. And but I was like, man, that's a bad glitch,
That is
that's a bad glitch. So some people have some explaining to do, but it happens, but we're always ready to go and ready to execute that mission if called upon. Hopefully we never have to execute it, because it's going to be a really bad day if it does. So
that's a lot of the tours that I go on. I've heard people say, you guys don't want to ever do your job. You just want to practice.
Exactly.
So that's good.
Yep.
I tell people on the tours, whenever I'm going by, I say they never want to do their job, and that's fine with me. I don't want you to do your job either. I want you to just practice.
Exactly. I wear a patch here on my right shoulder here, and you can read it, and it says at the top, "Been nuked today," and on the bottom it says, "You're welcome."
I like it.
That means that we're doing our job, every single day,
Exactly.
so we don't have to actually execute it. So,
Right.
Awesome.
So because Tinker's considered a sea duty, is Tinker a prime location for your sailors?
So a lot of Navy sailors, of course, want to be stationed at the beach, as you can imagine.
Yes.
Yes. But we have the gorgeous beaches of Lake Hefner, Lake Thunderbird, Stanley Draper. Right.
Yeah. That's a beautiful one here.
Yeah. So it is, but it's kind of funny though. A lot of people was like, "Oh man, I got to go do a tour in Oklahoma." They get here and they check in with me, and I was like, "Well, welcome to Oklahoma City," and there everybody's kind of got that look on their face, and this, that, and the other. But it's funny. About a year later, they don't want to leave. They want to stay. We have so many sailors out here that end up coming to Oklahoma. They came here 20 years ago, and they never have left because they love Oklahoma so much. I'm going to be honest, Oklahoma has a lot to offer between the cost of living out here, and the people are very friendly. I can't even count how many times people have bought me breakfast or lunch, out here in town. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. But the headquarters is here for our mission, but I can't really say that it's necessarily the Navy itself that's keeping folks here. I'm gonna be honest with you. I would say it's a combination of both, just being the friendliness of Oklahoma, Tinker Air Force Base, and partly definitely the mission that we do, because it is vitally important to our country. So
Right.
It is.
So true.
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the partnership between the Navy and Air Force here at Tinker?
Yeah, I mean, like Colonel Filchek, has been here definitely most of the time that I've been here, and he is awesome. I mean, working with the base on a weekly basis, we do our phone calls. I got him, of course, in my cell phone. I can give him a call anytime I need to, and basically the base itself is always accommodating, definitely friendly, Navy friendly, for that matter, on everything that's going on with our mission. They know that we're a Tier 1 mission. Mm-hmm. And then our medical staff, most bases we actually have our own, of course, Navy clinic, hospital, this and other. Now we do have Navy medical personnel here. I got 3 flight doctors, got some corpsmen, some HMs that work for us, but the 72nd Med Group, takes care of most of my sailors, for that matter, and just the support from the medical to even the what we call a Navy-based Fleet and Family Service Center, but we have the Airman's Attic here. We have even the ID car. I mean, everything. The Air Force is basically open arms, and we are. I'll be honest with you, I feel, and our Navy sailors do feel a part of the base. I mean, we are a part of the base. We are one of their major tenant commands, and everything that the base does, they always include us, which is awesome. So it's good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you get included in things like construction and quality of life topics? Do you get to have your input? Good.
We do. So they invite us to the meetings, let us know exactly when the construction is going on, who's in charge of that right there, and also get our inputs. I send my facilities manager over to those particular meetings and things of that nature, and then also the base is also always looking into the future of how much we're growing. The Navy has grown tremendously over the last decade, and even our personnel, of course, we're bringing even more. So currently right now we're underneath a recap, which we're getting a new aircraft within the next 10 years that's going to be coming to Tinker. And the footprint of us is going to grow substantially. The base is already looking at that and setting aside, even some pieces of land that we're going to need to expand to. And so, having that coordination and definitely keeping those talks open. I mean, it's phenomenal that the base is always looking after all of its tenant commands. Definitely to include the Navy. So.
I think that's pretty awesome to say because we're not a joint base.
Yeah.
Like, sir, you talked about a lot of bases going to that joint base concept, but
exactly.
Our partnerships here with different services like the Navy, it's really, that does make up the Team Tinker.
Oh, yeah.
The Team Tinker concept.
Definitely. And truthfully, with ALC being here as well, I can't forget about them. And so, they do a lot of our heavy depot maintenance here. And how easy is it for me to just taxi an aircraft across the runway?
Right.
Instead of having
pushing down the street.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And I know we didn't plan on talking about this, but I think you guys have a reserve component here. Is that correct?
So there is a Navy Reserve component. They don't fall under me because I'm the active, unit here. But we do have a Navy Reserve component. It's right off of Douglas on the backside here of the base. That I do know the OIC that's over that unit, and so we do some events together. Like so during our chief season every year. So. Great time for the Navy, I'm sure you remember there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, the chief season is great, and so even when those Navy reservists get selected, and now they're going to get to go through, what we call what we used to call initiation, but it's not called initiation anymore. I think we call it CPO 365. I think, and so basically, they go through those few weeks of training. So they actually come over and they'll go through with the active duty unit, and so we work with them in that aspect. And then of course fundraisers and highway cleanups and things of that nature that they'll come over and help with, and we'll help them with. So we maintain definitely close contact. So
awesome. Well, sir, I think with that we're gonna turn to and let you go get back after it. And
gotcha.
It's getting later in the day, and thanks so much for coming over. This is a great conversation. With that does bring to end another edition of the Tinker Talks podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Please don't forget to check out our website, www.tinker.af.mil, and there's a COVID-19 tab on the top of that website that you can get all of the latest news and updates on COVID-19. Also, please don't forget to check us out on social media. That's at Tinker Air Force Base on Facebook and Instagram. And on Twitter, of course, that's at @team_Tinker. And so until next time, everybody, please be safe, be kind and respectful to one another, and have a great day and a better week.